So I'm Daniel Sperry.
I'm Bethany Sperry.
We came to Nall in 2017, officially. Our first Sunday we came, though, a year before that with Matt and Ashlyn Pozlotic. I knew Matt from college. I also knew Austin Fisher and now Scotty Fisher, who's back here, but I knew them from Olivet as well, and then Daniel Mitchell. So when we officially started to go here, I had a lot of connections. She was a little nervous at first, but the young adult group really became a plug-in for the both of us.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in college church, so it was really hard for me to leave the place that I'd always known. We got married there. I graduated nursing school there. I was dedicated there. My whole life was in college church. But after the first Sunday that we came here, Steve took us out to lunch, and I had never gone out to lunch with the pastor before, and that was a really big deal for me. I feel like in larger churches, sometimes your pastor seems unattainable and unapproachable and a little intimidating, and that didn't happen here at all. So then we just kept coming.
Yeah, and I think, having so many connections here, and then I think David, Luna, and Ashton also started coming around the same time we did. And I knew David from working at Golden Bell, which is camp in Colorado, which is where we met, and just the amount of young adult people that we knew, the connections and stuff that we made, and then eventually going to Steve's house on Thursday nights just became a place where we had finally really felt like we had a home, and a church group a group of friends that if we weren't there for a Sunday, we knew we were going to get a text message where are you at? Where we probably hadn't had that for the first year of marriage and going to church together every Sunday.
So in April of 2019, we found out that we were pregnant. Super exciting. Early on, I had some complications in my pregnancy, and it was just a little scary. All of our young adult group friends kind of came together and helped us move and all that stuff. Once we were at 20 weeks, I went in for a normal ultrasound, and they found some complications. I was rushed to a emergency surgery, and 3 hours after my appointment, I was recovering. We texted in our GroupMe message, and Daniel had talked about how we just needed some extra prayers because all this stuff was going on. We didn't really know what the outcome would be. There was a fairly high chance that we would lose Wesley. And that night, almost everyone from the young adult group was in my hospital room. David and Ashton brought brownies, and we just sat around and talked, and it was probably the most normal I had felt in a while.
It was really big because it just showed the amount of support that we had from a group that this was the first serious trial for us as a couple, and to immediately have all of these people that we had really only been friends with and close friends with for it was about a year. I mean, they dropped, some of them dropped everything in the middle of the day to come be with me and help keep me company while she was in surgery and help calm me down. And we had gone in, she said, it was a routine appointment, and all of a sudden the doctor comes in and starts rattling off survival expectancy percentages. It was just this whirlwind of scary things, and I was supposed to go home in 20 minutes after the appointment, and all of a sudden we were there for almost 2 days, and people just scrambling around to help alleviate the outside stresses for us, and then everybody showing up in the hospital room. I think we had 12 people in a recovery room in that hospital room, and then they all left and another group came in, and so it was just so big for us to feel so loved but also cared for, and that we knew we had a family that was really going to take care of us, not just in their presence, but also spiritually too, or going to battle for us in prayer. And that's something that we'll definitely never forget. But again, that was kind of the start of a lot of the complications too.
I was put on strict bed rest. I couldn't work. I couldn't really do anything. So coming to church was like my escape. I was pretty much home all day by myself with my dog. And it was just nice to have some human interaction with coming here and just getting to see faces. When I was 28 weeks, I went in for another routine appointment, and my blood pressure was really, really high. So I was admitted to the hospital, and while I was there, they noticed that Wesley's heart rate would drop really, really low, sometimes all the way down to like the 50s, and should be like over 100. So a couple times was rushed to the operating room because they were thinking that they would have to do like an emergency C-section, and there was just all this back and forth. And everyone in our young adult group would ask us all the time, do you guys need anything, or what's going on, what's an update, and all that stuff. I had people bring me lunch almost every single day, so I didn't have to eat all the gross hospital food, which was super nice and helpful. And then all of the congregation donated gift cards so that we could go out to eat. It was hard because Daniel was still working, and so he'd be at work all day, and he'd come straight from work to the hospital, and there's not a lot of time to make your own food when you're that busy.
Yeah, and I think that, and even like gas stuff was exhausting. Driving from there to work, all the way up to downtown to the hospital, and then all the way back, and it was like lather, rinse, repeat for 3 weeks for me. And then I definitely think I had plenty of people to like reach out and just say, hey, how can I help, pray for you?
So I was in and out of the hospital for about 3 weeks. At exactly 31 weeks, on October 28th, Wesley was born at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was kind of a rush of events. So I was supposed to go home the day before from the hospital, and when they checked my blood pressure right before I was supposed to be discharged at like 5 p.m., it was super, super high. So they moved me over to the labor and delivery side, and it was just hectic and chaotic and really scary, not knowing what was going to happen. And we had actually made the decision to go ahead and do like a C-section. It was going to be more planned, so it wasn't going to be like this rush and scariness. They decided against that, but a couple hours later, her heart rate dropped into the 40s and wasn't coming back up. So one of the nurses looked at me and said, do I need to wake him up? Because Daniel's asleep on the couch. And they rushed me into the operating room. I was in the room at 1 o'clock, and she was born at 1:08. Daniel didn't even have time to get his little surgical clothes on to come in there.
They woke me up, and I could tell that they were getting ready to. They were. This was from the moment. Many times I stayed up there at the hospital. Like, this was a routine that if we couldn't get the heart rate back, there was a routine of things that they would ask of Bethany to do, and to roll over to this side and do that. And they'd gone through all of that, and it still wasn't coming back up. And I was just kind of coming to right as they had pretty much decided to wheel her back. And so that same nurse who asked, should I wake him up, threw the bunny suit at me and said, put it on, let's go, it's time. And this is at 1 a.m. after I was in a dead sleep. And I think I immediately I got it on, and then I texted my family, texted my parents, or called them and tried to tell them as quickly as I could, and told Renee as well, who obviously children's pastor, my sister. I texted her and said, hey, this is happening. If you want to come up, we probably won't be able to see her until later tomorrow, but if you want to come up, this is happening like right now. And then I texted Steve. Steve was the next person that I knew would be awake at 1 a.m. For those of you who know Steve, he's probably awake. And so I texted him, and they, on my end, they wheeled her out, or they wheeled her out of Bethany out of the room. And they came to me about 10 minutes later and said, she's born, she's out, take it off. And I was very confused, and the nurse came up and said, it's okay, she's healthy. She came out screaming. they wheeled her out in the NICU, in the incubator in the bed. And like it was crazy to think about it, but like I looked at her and it's like this red alien looking thing in a plastic bag inside this thing to keep, the plastic bag was to keep her warm, and she was alive, and you could see the monitor keeping the heart rate going. And just a whirlwind of all of a sudden it was like, wow, here's my daughter, but we are about to be in it for the next few weeks too. And so once I got to go back and see her and talk to all the doctors and get our room set up in the NICU, I went back out and I was able to talk to Bethany for a little bit. She was still pretty heavily sedated and not quite with it. And so, they said it's okay to go take a breather. And I went outside, and getting to talk to Steve and Renee after that at this 2 a.m. We're sitting in a waiting room at the hospital and being able to talk through everything and like what was going on in my head. So I get a little emotional. But like that, being able just to have Steve there just to talk through it all, and my sister, of course. But it just showed that, one, we have a pastor and a church that really cared for our situation, and in a time where I felt pretty alone, I had two people there that were side by side with us, and praying over everything, and just kind of helped me make sense of everything that was going on and calm down, and also go and get me McDonald's because I was starving and it was all stressful. And so Steve left to get me McDonald's and came back, and that was just I don't think I will ever forget that, nor will I ever not be grateful for Steve coming up that evening or that morning to be with us. But then, it really, like, she was born, yes, but we still had another 5 weeks of back and forth with the hospital.
So after Wesley was born, she was taken to the NICU, like Daniel said, and she spent 5 weeks there, which is actually not very long considering how early she was born. They had said that she would probably be there for closer to 9 weeks, so we got out a lot sooner than we thought. But again, the same thing, people donated gas gift cards and food gift cards. I was spending 12 plus hours a day at the hospital trying to feel like a parent. But yeah, I mean, we can't thank everyone enough for all of the support that we had during that whole thing.
But that really showed us just yes, the young adult thing too, but this was beyond just our young adult group. This was people that, as we have been in this church, still some of them were figuring out, actually went to our church, because we were still relatively new into the church body. And I think, there was just, and it was always, it was always right when we needed it. We'd be sitting here and we'd be like, man, I know we've kind of run out of the gas gift cards and we're running low on cash. And, luckily we have families that we can say, hey, that have been willing to help us out. But somehow Renee would come up and say, all right, here's another Quick Trip gift card, and it was just it just continued to come even months, weeks after all of that happened. And it was just such a blessing and so helpful that, like as Bethany said, we definitely can't thank the church body enough, because that really showed us the church family that we have here, showed us how much people cared about us and cared about the situation, and were continuing to remember us in prayer and everything. And
So now Wesley is 1, and she is doing great. She's hitting all of her developmental milestones, a little on the small side, but other than that, she's perfect. Couldn't really ask for anything more on that end.
And health-wise too, for her, she, as we haven't had any severe complications from anything, but I definitely think that for the both of us, going through all of this, really, we had never really been through any severe trial this is the first major test of of our marriage, and we learned just how much God is able to walk with us in those moments. And, it may not have been the prayer. I could just certainly prayed for it all just to go away, and that she would be fine, and that all of this would just disappear, but that wasn't the way it went, and that was not the plan. But still, we were able to see God work in the midst of even my own frustrations. I remember driving home one night, and I was kind of mad at God, and I think she had been admitted again for like the second or third time in the lead up to Wesley being born. And I was just so mad because it was about a week out when we were supposed to do a baby shower for her in her first one. And it just frustrated me to see her go through all this and be stuck in a hospital room when fall is, one, her favorite season, and she missed all of the fall things that she wanted to do. And two, how much of a not normal pregnancy she got for her first time going through all that. Everything was just a constant battle to be like, man, are we going to even have this, is this baby going to be alive tomorrow? For at that point, it was almost 10 weeks, 11 weeks of that question coming up in our heads, and probably her head almost every single day. And I was frustrated at God for why, what did we do to why do we deserve this? Where are you in this? And I think he answered that pretty clearly on the back end of everything that was going on with just how quickly our NICU stay went, how well she developed, how much, like I said, the timing of some of those gift cards was to the day important. I definitely see the church body more so. I think through all this, we just see that it's our family more so, and much larger beyond just the people in the group me and people who come to Steve's on Thursday night and stuff, because for a while that was why we were here, and that was a reason that we kept coming, but beyond that, it just really showed that how much the whole of the church really cared for us, and took us in the scariest, most stressful part of our lives so far.
I agree with that. I don't have anything else.